If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Okay, yeah. So in the last session, we discussed some of the deployment options and some basic concepts of MDG. Okay, and the first topic as part of MDG. Okay, so the out-of-box objects that SAP delivered are material master. That means using MDG, you can actually govern material master, and you can govern business partner, customer, and vendor. And we can also govern finance related objects. When I say finance, so all these objects we can govern over here. And additionally, there is under plant maintenance, there is a group of objects master data are there, so that we call it as a EAM solutions. MDG EAM solution. EAM stands for asset enterprise asset management. Okay, so under this particular EAM solutions, you have an option to govern equipment master, functional location, bill of materials, and there are few more objects are there like task list. And you have if you by any chance, if you worked earlier, you the people who worked on plant maintenance, they might be aware of all these masters: equipment, functional location, bill of materials, task list, object links, object networks, and all this. Okay, very specifically usually in IS utilities, or probably wherever you have big plants, so there this EM actually will be extensively used. And apart from that, in IS retail space, RFM is the article master, where you can actually govern article master as well, and as part of RFM solution, retail and fashion management. Okay, so this will be used can you go on mute if you're not speaking? Okay, so in IS retail space, article master is one of the master data. So you can also govern article master as well through MDG. So these are like EAM and RFM solutions are actually built based on MDG custom solutions. Okay, so from SAP you get these three objects, and apart from that you get it. These are, you need to take a separate license from SAP or the SAP partner to get out-of-box objects for EM or RFM solutions. And apart from that, I can also create my own custom master as well in MDG. So that means basically in MDG, I can, if at all in my organization, employee master or W-based element or a plant also, even for plant or company code or any master I wanted to company code, of course, it is there as part of the out-of-box, but I can actually govern my custom masters as well. That MDG framework also supports, if you look at that MDG technical architecture, okay, you see here SAP material master, finance, business partners are comes as part of the standard object. And you also, the MDG also supports to create your own masters as well under custom objects. Using this particular custom object framework only, SAP partners build or develop this EAM or RFM, and similarly we can also build our own custom masters as well. Okay, now, so coming back to the next first topic in MDG is data model. Okay, so what is this data model? As we talked earlier, MDG, so there is a staging area in MDG. Okay, so let me show you, draw the picture here. So you in ECC, for every master you will have some set of tables. Like for material master, I have Mara. If I'm taking material master, I have Mara is one of the main table, and you will also have Marcy and MVKE for sales, MBEW for valuation. Okay, so likewise you have MLON. Okay, and you'll have MAKT. Okay, so likewise there are group of bunch of tables are there which will store material information. Similarly, if you're taking vendor master, so in vendor master again you will have some group of tables like LFA1 and LFB1. Okay, and LFM1, Okay, so likewise, there are group of bunch of tables are there which will store your vendor master data. So ultimately, for every master to store in the data will get stored into the this respective SAP standard SAP tables. Okay, now if you look at the MDG system, okay, so this is my MDG system. As I said earlier, if at all I have to say an MDG system, first I should have my SAP ECC or S4 version. Okay, on top of this ECC S4 version, I will be activating my MDG specific add-on component. Okay, MDG is not cannot exist alone without your ECC or S4. So first I have to take an S4 or ECC system. Okay, and when I say this is S4 or ECC system, that means this will have all these particular MARA, I mean all your logistics or ERP related tables, whatever the tables are there. So you will get all these MM related tables, BP related tables, and vendor related, all the master standard master data related tables will be available over here. Okay, now on top of this one, I will be activating some business functions specific to MDG. So that I showed in one of the previous session how to activate MDG specific components. Okay, so once I activate those components, I will get all the MDG related functionalities on this particular system. Okay, now this entire system I will call it as my MDG system. Okay, and here I will be having clear. Okay, so this is my S4 MDG system. I call it as an MDG system, and this is my transactional system. Okay, so where the transactional activities will happen. Okay, this is also one of my ECC or S4 system only. Okay, so similar to this one, I'll have all MMBP, all vendor related, all master data related tables will be there. Now the difference between this and this is, here this particular system I will be using only just to create a master data. I call this system as, I mean, of course, though it's an MDG system, I will still very much will have all these related the master data tables will be available over here, and the transaction related tables also available over here, but I don't use this particular transactional related tables here because I'm not going to create any transaction. I'm not going to perform transactional activities. Only the master data related tables and the specific configuration will be maintained. Okay, here along with this master data, you will also perform your transactional activities like your sales orders, purchase orders, or any goods movement documents, or any finance related invoices, or anything, whatever the transactional activities will happen over here. Okay, now earlier I'm creating that master data in this particular system. Now I'm introducing MDG as a separate system, and I will create a master data here in this particular system. So once I create a master data through MDG layer, that master data will be get created or get added into my this respective tables here. So this particular respective tables, the master data will get created, and from here I will be replicating the master data to the respective target systems, or I'll be distributing the data to the respective target systems, so that this master data will be made available, and this data can be used in my transactional activities. Okay, now in this entire process, because I need in MDG for out standard objects, you will have something called staging area here. Okay, staging area is nothing but that the data, like I mean in MDG, when you're creating material or when you're creating business partner, initially the data will get created in this particular system. Okay, it gets stored into this particular temporary staging area. Now on top of this particular record, I'll be applying all governance processes. It can be the workflows, it can be the validations or checks or derivations, all sort of processing. I'll be the governance rules I'll be applying on this MDG. And finally, the record probably once everyone, the steward or the final approver approves this particular record, that time this particular record will be moved from my MDG layer to the underlying the standard SAP tables. Okay, that's the reason MDG is very much integrated with your underlying ECC system. Okay, so because now you are storing this the finalized record or the active record you are storing into your this particular, you are reusing the existing standard SAP tables to store your active data, active records. Once you store this active records, then you can actually replicate that particular data to the, if you have n number of target systems, you can replicate the data to multiple target systems. But this is my centralized master data governance system. Okay, in this system, I only create master data. I don't use any, I don't perform any transactional activities. Okay, so this kind of scenario, we call it as a hub scenario, which we discussed earlier. Okay, so you will, hub means you will create an MDG as a centralized hub system. There you just only create the master data, and then you replicate that master data to the respective target systems in your landscape, business landscape. And also the other approach we already discussed earlier, that is nothing but co-deployment. That means instead of, because my business, I don't see a need to have a separate system, and it will actually involving more cost for me and maintenance effort as well. So I'll go and use my existing transaction system, because this is also your ECC system, right? I can activate my MDG specific components here itself. Okay, so in this case, after approved records will get directly loaded into my the underlying ECC layer here. So then I no need to distribute that record to any other target system, because here it is a separate system. You need to distribute that record to this particular target system. Okay, now here the whole point surrounding, I mean, the difference, basic difference is here in ECC. Let me just draw one more diagram. Okay, so here, this is my, whenever I say this is my MDG system, by default you will be having the underlying ECC RS4 component over here, and this is your transactional system. Okay, now the basic difference, if I create a material using MM01 here, then the data directly gets stored into my Mara table. Whereas in MDG, if I create a material using MDG, okay, so this is my MDG UI application. From there, once I enter the data and submit that request, the data gets stored into my staging area. Okay, I'll show you how it looks like. And after all the print governance processing, the final record will get added into my respective Mara or ECC tables. Okay, so now the difference, if you compare the difference here, this is the major difference. In without MDG, you don't have any staging area. With MDG, you are having the staging area. And what is the advantage of this particular staging area? Because the here, once the requester creates a record, that record may or may not get approved. Okay, because the approver or the steward, okay, or the master data expert, he will validate the record, and he will decide whether this record to be created or not. So there will be some decision making will be there. And once they decide that, okay, this record has to be created in the system, that time only the record will be pushed to your underlying ECC. And from there, that record will get distributed to your target system as well. Okay, now you have a staging, you need to store temporarily all your changes, okay, until it gets finalized. Okay, now this particular staging area is nothing but a group of SAP tables only. Okay, how you have for material master, Mara, Marcy, like group of tables, here also you'll have some group of tables. Okay, so that staging area we will be discussing as part of data model. Okay, in the data model we'll be discussing about the staging area concepts, the staging tables. Okay, and if at all you have to create your own staging area, let's say for example in my organization business decided that, okay, the plant creation also has to be done through MDG processes, but there is no out-of-box solution for plant creation. Usually you go to SPRO configuration and create a plant, but now business says that, okay, because we have a license for MDG, and let's use the governance approach to create a plant. Then what you need to do, you need to create your own staging area. Okay, and you need to create your own UI application, and then you need to have a mechanism that once that the workflows and everything you will be creating or building the workflows and everything. And finally, once the steward approves that record, then the plant you have to create in your underlying ECC table, like all your T001W or the plant related tables. Okay, you need to update, and then you need to take care of replicating this particular one. Okay, so the in case of material master, this all the staging area, UI applications, replication processes, workflows, and everything, the framework is everything is ready. You need to just configure as per your needs. But when it comes to the plant, it's a new master and it is not available as an out of box solution. So that's where using the custom object solution, you need to build everything, you need to develop everything. Okay, so that's what we are going to discuss in this particular data model topic. I will take one example, because now for if I start explaining the material master, the data model specific to because it's already built and already developed, so you won't be actually, what you can do, we can do is at max we can enhance with some custom attribution. But if you know how to create your own data model for your custom master, then you can understand it, and you can also extend easily the standard data models like and BP, the standard data models. Okay, so in this entire course we will be discussing about two cases. One scenario is building our custom object using MDG processes. Okay, and the other scenario, this is one of the one. This I'm explaining this particular whole process because it gives you an opportunity to create your master data from scratch. So what are the things that we need to take care when you are building some custom masters? And after that, the next scenario we'll be discussing is extending the standard data models, extensions to the standard data models. Okay, like MMBP. So in the projects, when you are in MDG project, so you will have all the attributes, standard attributes, but business will come and say that, okay, I have these Z attributes and I wanted to these Z attributes also should be part of my governance process. In that case, you don't build a custom master again, because already material master is there. All you need to just enhance the material master governance process with your custom attributes. So that also we'll be discussing. So 70 to 80% in the projects, you will be mostly 90% you will be working on these extensions only in any MDG project. But still, why I'm emphasizing more on this one is it covers a lot of concepts. Okay, if I only explain the extending the standard data model, then we won't be touching many of the concepts. But if I explain this particular process, then it will touch so many concepts, and we will be creating from scratch. So you know what are the steps are involved when you're creating. So that's why I wanted to cover both the topics. Okay, so now we will cover, of course, the custom object as well. After that, we will discuss about extending the standard data models. Okay, so when I say extending or building, that means end-to-end process. You need to build the staging area, you need to develop the UI application, you need to build your custom governance processes and validations, derivations, replications, each and everything. Okay, so your article master or EM solutions are developed based on this custom object framework only. Okay, so now the first topic we are going to discuss about in this course is data model. Okay, so data model always deals with your staging area. Okay, now just to visualize, let me show you once. I didn't get the, yeah, so I think the password is not working. It was working earlier, so they are working on that. Let's find. So the first in the data model, again, we have one small concept over here: flex versus reuse. Okay, so then what does this flex versus reuse? Let me. Okay, so this is my MDG system. Okay, and this is a ECC layer, and this is a MDG layer. Okay, and I have the staging data here, staging layer. Okay, and after that, I have my ECC tables like Mara Marcy tables. Okay, assume that this is my Mara table. Okay, now what happens is, initially this is my UI application, and in the UI application, user will fill all the material related details and he submits the request. Once he submits the request, the data comments it into the staging table, and it will go for workflow. It will go to the plant team, and then accounting team, purchasing team, depends on the workflow that you configure. It will go for some different workflow processes, and finally the steward or some person, the final data specialist, will approve this record. Once he approve the record, what happens is, because I said this is a temporary area, so the material will get deleted. Let's say, for example, initially the material number is 100. Okay, so this particular material will be moved to my underlying Mara-Masi tables. Okay, the 100 material number, and this particular record will get deleted from the staging area, because now the process is completed. Now I don't need this particular copy in my staging area. Immediately the framework will push that record to your underlying ECC table. Okay, as I said, it's a temporary area, and the finalized records will be moved to underlying your ECC tables, and that once that this movement is successful, then the record will get deleted from your staging area. Okay, so again, if you are in, so this kind of process we call it as a reuse mode. Reuse mode. Okay, so reuse mode means initially the record will be available in your staging area, and once the record gets approved, then the record will be moved to underlying ECC, or we are here reusing. I'm reusing the MDG framework or SAP, reusing this particular existing Mara-Masi tables to store your active records. Okay, so that's why we call it as a reuse mode. And in this case, let's say, for example, you have something called flex mode also. Flex mode. In case of flex mode, okay, so again the same picture. This is my MDG, and I have the staging tables, and I have the active tables. Okay, now this the same process, like user creates the request, material probably any master data. Let's say, for example, cost center or profit center is creating using the UI application, and once he submits the data gets initially created over here. After the steward or data specialist, once he finally approved this record, your active record, that means earlier it was, as long as the record is there in your staging area, we call it as an inactive record, because that record is not yet activated. It's an inactive record and it is undergoing for some changes. Okay, so the data that exists in your
sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.
Can you try now? I spoke with the vendor.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying that it's working. So
which user? It's a D user 5 or
yeah, it's a D user 5.
Okay, it's a 7 ending with.
Yes, welcome. Some password is there, no?
Yeah. Let me try.
Can you like type manual password is manual?
I'm copying this one only. It's not working. No, I'm not working.
Give me a minute. I'm in a call with the vendor. I will speak to him. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So in case of reuse mode, once your inactive record turn into active record, and it will move to your ECC tables. Whereas in case of flex mode, your active record also will remain exist in your staging area only. That means initially the cost center will get created. Cost center number maybe CC01 is the cost center number. It will initially it got created, and after the data specialist or the final approver approves that record. That means this record will turn to active record, inactive to active, but still it remains same. It will be there in your staging area only. It won't move automatically to your underlying ECC tables. Okay. Now this kind of concept we call it as a flex mode. Flex means your existing staging area you are using to store your inactive record, and after the same record turns to active record after once the approver approves, then the active record also will be there in your staging table only. This kind of concept we call it as a flex mode. Okay. Now,
Akshay, I have a question.
Yes.
So when you say that the active record will stay in the staging area,
Mhm.
So once the data is moved to ECC or S4HANA, will the record will be deleted or it will still remain?
It will still remain in your staging table also, active record. In case
Okay,
of
so
flex mode.
okay, and how long it is supposed to be there in the MDG system, like
Uh,
the staging area?
in flex mode, until you archive that data, it will be remains there. It won't automatically get deleted. It will be there in your MDG table.
Got it.
Okay. So, but that is in case of flex, and in case of reuse, it automatically gets deleted. You don't need to delete that separately. But in case of flex mode, your active record will, I mean, you don't have two copies of the same record. The same record initially will be there in active mode. And after that, once the approver approves, that record will turn to active. And it's not like the same record. There will be a status associated with that every record in the staging table. Okay. So that that particular status will have two values, 0 and 1. 0 means it's an inactive record. 1 means it's an active record. Okay. So then what happens is initially when from this particular UI application, when I submit that request, the record will get created in my staging table with the indicator will be 0. And after that, once the approver approves that record, then it will, the 0 will turn to 1. And this indicates that it's an active record. So there is won't be any record with 0 status. Always there will be one record with status as 1. Okay. Now,
will this replicate underlying ECC?
Sorry?
In flex mode, will this active record replicate in ECC?
Yeah, now I'm coming to that point. Okay. So, but if my data is available in this staging area, there is no use for me. Ultimately, I need this data into my target system or transactional system. Okay. So, in case of flex data model, you need to configure separate replication from your staging area to active area. Whereas in case of reuse mode, this happens automatically. You see here, automatically your replication, it will replicate to your active area as soon as the approver or specialist approves that record. You don't need to do anything. But whereas in case of reuse mode, flex mode, you need to configure this explicit replication to the, even though to the within the same system, to the active tables, you need to configure a separate replication. Okay. Now this okay, so what in this case what happens is, let's say for example, in case of reuse mode, let me in case of reuse, okay, this is your MDG system and MDG layer, ECC, and this is your target systems. You have n number of target systems, target 1, target 2, target 3. Okay. So initially, once you create the record and after approver approves this particular record, this happens automatically. Okay. You no need to configure any replication to the same system. There is no self replication required here in case of reuse. Okay. But you need to configure separate replication to this 3 target system. That means there are 3 replications you need to, replication 1, replication 2, replication 3. Because all are different systems, you need to configure 3 replications, which we will be discussing during there is a topic, data replication framework. In DRF, we will be discussing all this. But conceptually, you understand that you need to do some configuration from MDG to each target system. So in case of reuse, I need 3 replications over here. Whereas in case of flex data model, if I take the flex data model, MDG, ECC, okay. In case of, I have some different target systems, target 1, target 2, target 3. Okay. In case of flex data model, additionally, I need one more. Additionally, there is one more replication required. Okay. Along with this particular replications. So here you need 4 replications. In case of flex, you need 4 replications. Whereas in case of reuse mode, you need 3 replications. Because we wanted to have this particular data in my underlying ECC tables as well. Okay, if at all I open that SAP GUI, the SAP GUI transactions for cost center to display the cost center, that if you don't configure this replication also, this is still fine, because your transactional activities are happening here and your replication will happen from here always. In case of flex data model, from staging area only, system will take the active record and it will replicate the data to here. Okay, so this is still fine with the 3 replications. But if someone wants to look at that your ECC table level, you don't see that particular data exist over here. So that's why we need to also configure one more additional replication over here, so that you will have your data in your ECC layer of MDG system as well. So in case of flex data model, you need 4 replications. That will be okay. In case of reuse data model, to the same system, you don't need to configure this separate replication over here. Okay, so this is the flex versus reuse data model. Okay, so any questions on this? Is this clear, this concept?
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
When we use reuse mode or flex mode, and which one do you suggest?
Yeah, so now I'm coming to, we don't have any option. We have this option to choose flex versus reuse for your custom objects. For the standard objects, SAP is already decided, and I'll tell you why we have these 2 concepts, in what case we use what scenario and all that stuff. Okay, so first, let me in MDG out of box we have material master, business partners. When I say business partner, always it includes customer and vendor, and you have, okay, so, and also you have something called article master and EAM objects. Okay, so all these objects build using reuse mode concept. Okay, so that means, for if you create a material using MDG UI application and you submit that request. Okay, and after that it will go to some approver process. Approver will approve, and data steward or the data specialist finally will take a final decision, and he'll approve that request. Once you approve that request, automatically the data will be pushed over here. That happens for your BP, article master, and EM objects. Okay, you don't have any choice here to convert reuse to flex data model, and you have to go with for these objects, you have to go with always reuse mode only. Only finance objects uses
Akshay, sorry for the interruption again.
Yeah,
please check. You can check now.
Yeah, now it's working. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so only in case of finance objects, SAP built this using flex data model. That means when you create a cost center, profit center, cost element, or GL account, these masters, then once the inactive record turn to active record, that means once the final steward or approves that request, the data will be there in your staging area only. Okay, and you need to configure a replication. Of course, you need to configure the replication to all the target systems, and additionally, this particular replication is also required.
Akshay, here. So I did not understand why for the financing data we made flex model.
Yeah. Now I'm coming to that point. Okay. Now, but you understood this concept, right? Reuse versus flex data model.
Yeah.
The only difference is this additional replication. That's it. Okay. Now, why SAP come up with this flex data model concept for finance objects? Because all finance objects has time dependency, whereas other objects doesn't have the time dependency. If I create a cost center, okay, now, okay, let's say for example, I created a cost center. Now for this cost center is CC01. Okay, when I create this cost center, it says that that the validity, it will be associated with validity period. Okay, let's say for example, the validity is 01 and August and 2021. The validity will be initially to probably 31st then 12,999. This is the validity. That means it is a till unlimited validity. Okay. Now, as part of under this particular cost center, I have some cost center attributes. Let's say, for example, the description. I said that the cost center description I said is something like, let's say, for example, maybe ABC. The description I said ABC. This is the description. Okay. And description. And I also have some other, this cost center is linked to some hierarchy. Assume that this is linked to some hierarchy. That hierarchy is, for example, HRC01. This is the hierarchy. Likewise, under cost center, you will have multiple attributes, and these are the values. Now, later, sometime in September, what happened is I wanted to do some changes to this particular cost center. Okay. In this case, what happens is I'll take the same cost center. Okay. And I will edit this particular data. I'll edit this particular data. Let's say, for example, the description I'm saying instead of ABC, I say ABC XYZ. This is the description. And hierarchy, I wanted to assign it to new hierarchy, HRC02. Okay. Now it's the same cost center. I'm changing some attributes sometime in September. Then during that time, what happens is this particular validity will be turned to 31st August and 2021. And the new validity period will be 1st September 999. Okay. So I will have two versions of the record, because if I tell I have to pull some reports for related to this cost center, some which is actually some based on falls under August month, then it should refer this one. It should not refer this one. And when I'm referring something, anything after September, always it should refer this one. So system will keep multiple copies of that one. I mean, you don't have in case of material master, you take material master and you do some maintain some base unit of measure. Okay, each you maintain the base unit of measure as each. And again, next month, when I change this each to something else, let's say, for example, PC or something, and it will be like on the single material only, the data will be overwritten with PC. It's not like if I open, I have a time period and during August, it should refer each, and it should, after in September, it should refer PC. It's not like that. You don't have such kind of concept in material or business partner or vendor or anywhere. But for finance objects, this particular time, every finance object is associated with time dependency. And because of this particular time dependency, there is a concept called addition concept. I'll be touching this addition concept. How SAP handled all this stuff, it is through additions. Okay, so there is a concept of addition, and as part of this particular addition concept, SAP handled all these different validities and everything. Now, why SAP use this particular flex data model? Okay, now why not it used reuse data model for material for finance objects? Okay, so then what happens is, assume that in an organization, okay, for example, I'm creating a cost center, profit center. Okay, and I'm going to set up a new plant. And that plant this plant should be active from 1st September. So that means I will be creating in MDG my cost center, profit center, and company code, and all this cost element, all these finance related objects sometime in August, and it will go for the governance process, and the records will get approved. And once it is get approved, then but I want this data to be made available in my transactional system only on 1st September, not before that. And again, I'm referring all these objects internally one after other. In profit center, I'm using some GL account, and in I'll be creating a separate GL account, and this GL account I'm referring in profit center. In cost center also I'm referring this GL account. That means all these objects are interlinked. Okay, all these objects should be replicated to the distributed to the target system at one time. It should not like as soon as I approve this approve this request, it should not replicate as soon as each object gets created. All should replicate at the same time. Okay. Now what happens is, in MDG, in the staging area, this is my MDG layer. This is my MDG layer. all my active records will be there in staging area only. I will be holding all these records. I don't replicate this records as soon as it gets approved. What I will do is all these objects will be assigned to something called edition. There is a concept called edition. Okay, and this all these cost center, profit center, all objects will be assigned to edition, and this particular edition I will be releasing in the system on 31st August. So once I release this particular edition, then all the objects under this particular edition will get started distributing to your target systems. Okay, so unlike your material or fine in material, right, as soon as you approve that request, it should be made available in the transactional systems. But whereas in case of finance, it has one is the time dependency, the other one. So, and you are creating all these objects in a group, and you should replicate all this together. And that's why you have something called edition. Always this edition will be associated with this edition will be assigned to some validity period, and whenever you create a cost center, profit center, you will be choosing this particular edition, and whatever the validity is there in this edition, that validity will be applicable for all these objects. And once you release this particular edition, then only all these objects will be replicated. It has a different or peculiar nature or behavior. So that's why SAP come up with this staging area concept, so that it will be, though the records get activated temporarily, it will be there in your staging area for some time, and whenever that particular you release that edition, or you can configure or you can schedule it as a you can schedule the edition, so that that edition will be automatically, it will release all the objects under that particular edition whenever as per your schedule. Okay, so that's why SAP come up with this kind of flex mode concept. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Shekhar here. Good evening.
Yep, sure.
I have one doubt, Akshay, over here. And like that, you said that after the release of edition, then the data will get replicated as a self-replication or replicated to target system, right? You were trying to say that, right?
Yes, yes.
Suppose that I am creating a cost center, okay, and we have a different level of approval. Suppose 2 level of approval 1 and 2. As soon as final approval is done, then in this case the data won't get replicated into my target system. Only after the release of edition it will get replicated. Yeah, that's true. But again, there is some kind of configuration at edition level. I will be taking edition as a separate topic. But you are right. Once you release your edition, that all the masters which are tied up to that particular edition will get replicated. This is one option. There is another option also there. While creating in the edition, you will have 3 options. Okay, so option 1 is distribute all these objects along with the edition release. Okay, so that is what we discussed. And the other option that you have is, while approving this particular master data also, you can take a decision. Okay, you wanted to wait till that edition releases, or you wanted to replicate immediately once this record gets approved. That is your reuse kind of concept. Okay, so you can actually configure that settings when you are creating an edition. You can configure whether you give an option to the user approver to distribute this particular individual master as soon as it gets approved, or else you don't want to give any option, and once you approver approves also, only when the edition gets released, that time only that objects will get released. Okay, so you have that kind of flexibility, that options you will be having. Depends on your business needs. You can configure. You can whether you can wait till that edition gets released, or else just like your reuse data model, as soon as the record gets approved, you can also release. You can also move your individual objects, distribute your individual objects as well. Both are there. That flexibility is there. Yeah, very much clear. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So now this is when it comes to the standard data models, this is the approach. Only finance data model uses flex data model. Rest all masters uses reuse data model. Okay, so now again, when it comes to the custom master,
plant master or any custom master. Now it's up to us whether we can choose the flex data model or reuse data model. Okay, so how to choose that? That is at the configuration level. Okay, but we will choose that how we can actually configure that flex or reuse data model. But when it comes to for the standard data models, you don't have any option. You have to go with this particular process. But for the custom objects, if you are by any chance, if you are involved in building any custom objects, then you can take a call whether you can actually go with the flex or reuse data model. Okay, now coming back to our slides. Okay, so it gives like, I mean, if you look at your flex reuse data model, so this is your MDG system, and you have an ERP layer, ECC layer. As soon as your record get activated means we call it as the final approver stage. We call it as an activation process in MDG. Okay, as soon as the record gets activated, the record will be moved to your underlying active area. Active area is nothing but your ECC tables, SAP standard SAP tables. That is what it says in case of reuse data model. Okay, but in case of flex data model, okay, what happens is, though here they're showing it as something called active area, this is a wrong picture. This entire thing represents your staging area. Later SAP corrected this particular diagram. Okay, but this is a one single staging area. Okay, you are in MDG layer only. This is your you don't have to separate layers over here. It's a single table. Within the table, initially the record will get stored in an inactive mode, and once the record gets activated, it will the flag or the status will turn to inactive to active, 0 to 1. 0 to 1, it will just turn. The same record will be staying in the same table. Okay, but here if you look at this one, if at all you wanted to move that record to your ERP or ECC layer, then this is extra replication is required. Whereas here in case of reuse mode, it automatically happens. There is no extra replication. Whereas in case of flex data model, as an additional replication is required. It is if needed. Now you see here, it's not mandatory. But for finance objects, we mandatorily configure this replication, self-replication also. Because I wanted to, if I go to my SAP tables, I wanted to see the data. That's why I always recommend to do that self-replication mandatorily. But for your custom objects, it's up to you. It's not mandatory that you always have to configure that extra replication. Okay, now this is a flex versus reuse data model. Okay, now coming back to the important elements in data model. Okay, so let me take this particular. Okay, first let's see how MDG UIs looks like. Okay, so I logged into MDG system. In MDG system, okay, so I'll go to NWBC. NWP is the transaction code. Okay, so NWP is a transaction code where you can log into, you can, there are certain, all these are different roles. Okay, you can choose any role. Okay, we'll talk about these roles. First, focus on how the MDG UI look like. Okay, for material master, I'll go to material master. Okay, so this is for SAP MDG menu 09 is the latest, latest one. Okay, when I click this particular link, okay, it will take me to the material master homepage. In this particular homepage, I can search for the materials. I can create a material. I can change existing materials. So likewise, okay. Now I wanted to, let's say I wanted to create a material. Click on create material. Okay, so I'll choose some change request type. We'll decide the governance flow, workflows that we will talk in the process modeling. For now, just ignore this particular, this one, change request type. So I go to the material creation page. Okay, now let's, it asks for some header information. What is the reason you are creating this particular, this request? Okay, so test material creation. This is MDG specific information. Whatever you see this particular change request, this particular section,
This is MDG specific related information. What is your material master specific information starts from here, from your change management, basic data. From here, like you'll have your material types and everything. Let me choose some material type over here, FERT finished product, and the unit of measure will be something like each. I'll select each material. I'll select some material group. Okay. And this is the material number. Let me just put the description, something like test mat 21. Now I'll submit this request. Okay, so there's some more basic information you need to fill. The material descriptions, test material. Okay, now let me check if any issues are there here. You can click on check so that it will show you if any errors are there or any mandatory information is missing. Okay, so there nothing here. Okay, so let me just submit this request. So I'm as a requester, okay, end user. I wanted to create a material, so I just entered this some basic data and I'm submitting this request. Now, as we discussed, this particular data initially gets stored into the staging tables. Okay, how to look at the records in the staging table? For that one, we can actually there is a program USMD underscore data underscore model. So there is a program USMD data model. Okay, so you need to just run this particular program. It asks for the data model. Okay, so in MDG, as I said, in the SAP is already predefined, or as out of box, it's already delivered this particular data models. So the data models are for material master. The data model is MM. MM is the data model name for material master. Okay. Similarly, for business partner, the data model name is BP. Okay. It includes business partner, customer, and similarly for finance, it's a OG. The data model name is OG. Okay, which includes all your cost center, profit center, cost element, GL account, all this particular stuff. Okay, so these are your data model names. Okay, now this particular data model, I'll show you. We'll get into the configuration. First, I will just. Can you go on mute, please? Yeah. Okay, so this particular data model name I need to provide over here. Okay, so MM is because I wanted to look at my records in the staging table, so I'm just providing my MM as a data model. And so all these are whatever you can see here. These are the staging tables for material master. There are so many staging tables are there. And you see here, the table names are not like simple like Mara Marcy. It's like something /1MD/MD. All these are because these are the generated data. These are the generated tables. Okay. Now here, I wanted to show you that my material data that we just created. So this is the staging table name. Okay. You no need to remember. I'll explain this how we can actually identify these table names. Okay. Now, but corresponding to your Mara table on ECC, this is the staging table on MDG side, which will have your material type, all your authorization group, or your Mara related, all the attributes will be available over here. Now here, the material number is this one. So let's go to the material number. The material that this is test mat one. This is the material number we created. Let's not copy. Test mat 21. Or yeah, so this is the material number that we just created. Okay, So test mat 120 and 21, and we selected this is a material group and industry sector, unit of measure, this information that the material type. So this only this much of information we provided. Now this data, this is a staging table, how your record gets stored into this particular staging table. Okay, now we will discuss more as part of this particular data model concept, but I just wanted to show you on the UI once you submit that request. And now again, this is a not yet approved this record, it's a inactive record. Okay, so that's why you see here the status, there will be something called USMD underscore active is the status. This status tells that whether it is an active record or inactive record. Of course, it's a material master data model. Usually you don't find any active records over here, but this indicator tells you that whether it is an active record or inactive record. 0 indicates inactive record and it is being processed. Okay, it is undergoing for some changes. 1 indicates it's an active record. Okay, so now let's
Akshay,
yeah.
Kiran, yeah. So this program, what you're showing us to check the staging data, right?
Yes.
So is it for S4HANA or is it for ECC?
No, it's for same thing. So there is no difference between S4HANA or ECC. Only you will get some additional configurations. There are n number of reports or n number of programs are there in MDG. So the program names remain same in both systems. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, yeah, let's get into in the data model. First, let me show you how that the data model look like. Okay. So that transaction code to get into MDG configuration is MDG IMG. MDG IMG, it is similar to your SPRO configuration. Okay, so actually it's part of one of the subnode in your SPRO configuration, but the direct shortcut transaction code is MDG IMG. Okay, in MDG IMG, once you get into MDG IMG transaction, okay, now you see here there is some configuration nodes are there over here. So these nodes, configuration nodes, you get to see only when you activate your MDG specific business functions. That means
Actually, your screen is white.
Sorry, can't
your
you
screen
see?
Is white. Yeah.
No, I'm there in MDG IMG configuration. Everyone.
No, it is blank. Yeah, I can see it now.
Yeah. Okay. So MDG IMG is the transaction code where 90% of the configuration we do over here. Okay, so this is very, very important transaction, and day in, day out, we actually get into this particular configuration. And this, when I say it's an MDG system, when you activate your business functions, then only you'll get to see all these configuration nodes. If you don't actually activate your, if you take any non-MDG system and enter MDG IMG, you just only see the first, this top one, and there is no configuration is activated under that. Okay, now here you have something called data model. Okay, so this data model deals with your MDG IMG, your staging area. Now when you get into this particular data model, first now configuration is edit data model. Okay, so in edit data model, as I said, SAP provided multiple for material master. This is the is the data model name. Okay, and for business partner, BP is the data model name, and for finance, OG is the data model name. Okay, and in this particular system, article master or EAM are not there. But if you see, if you take any MDG system where article master is also, business functions are also activated, then the data model name is AR. AR indicates article master. Okay, AR is the data model name, and for EAM, U1 is the data model name. U1 is the data model name. Okay, so these are the data model names, and wherever you go in any MDG project, it remains same because these are the standard data models. Okay, now and whatever you see, S-Flight, this is S-Flight, the generic one. Okay, and apart from that, whatever you see here, X or anything starting with Y or NK and all these things, those are custom data models. Okay, that means someone is trying to create in this particular system their own data model. So that's where they created. Even I can create my own data model. I can click on new entry and I can create my own data model over here. Okay, but always if you are creating your own data model, then you need to follow a naming convention.
Okay, so that naming convention is, okay, it should mandatory list, it will be always two character. Okay, it's always two character and alphanumeric. Okay, and always it should start with X or Y or Z. These are the namespace reserved for custom data models. Okay, that means it can be X1, XA, something like that, or else Y1, YA, Z1, ZA, something like this. I can create ZA, ZB. I can create my own data models with these names. Okay, it should always start with X or Y or Z. It will allow if you create something like A1, there is no issue. It will allow. Okay, but what happens is when you go for some upgrade, system upgrade, MDG from older version to latest version, when you go for upgrade, system will ignore all data models which are starting with X, Y, Z, and all others it will override. Okay, so that's why you if you create any data model, you will lose your changes with this naming convention. SAP strongly recommends all your data models should start with these three only. Okay, so when you create your own data model with X1 or Y1 or Z1, when you are going for upgrades, system doesn't touch your data model. But when you create something with A or B namespace or C namespace, there might be some overrides, there might be some loss will be there. Okay, so just keep in mind this. If you are creating your own data model, you need to follow this naming convention now. Okay, so in MDG, as I said earlier, I showed you some staging tables. We don't create those staging tables by going into S11 table. S11, we will do something called some configuration in the data model, and when you activate your data model in the backend, system automatically generates those staging tables. That's why you see the staging table names are starting with Y, YMD, something like that. Okay, so let me show you /o SE38. So if you enter data model, you can see all the staging tables. Okay, so each staging table stores some different information. One staging table will store material basic information. One staging table will store your plant related information. You'll have one staging table for your valuation related, or multiple staging tables for valuation related, accounting related, MRP related. So likewise, you'll have different staging tables. But the names, if you notice these particular names, these are not easy to remember, and that too, these names are very much volatile. Okay, so that means if you go for some upgrade, this staging table may the name might get changed. System will generate a new staging table, and that name will have something 05E, something like that. Okay, so never ever, we don't always directly, we don't refer this staging table in MDG world. Okay, so we will have some APIs to read this particular data, or else if at all you wanted to look this particular data in the staging table, you need to come through this particular program only. Okay, so that program will read all the currently available staging tables, and it will show you over here. Okay, now these staging tables are not created by us, it was generated by system automatically. Okay, now in MDG, we do the configuration specific to data model, and when you activate your data model configuration, automatically system will create one or multiple staging tables, depends on your data model configuration. Okay, now what are the things are there in the data model? Okay, so on ECC side, okay, on ECC side, assume that you have Mara table. Under Mara, you have the attributes like material number, you have material type, unit of measure, material group. All these are your fields from your Mara table. Now in MDG, okay, corresponding to Mara, here we have something called entity. Corresponding to Mara, we have entity. Okay, and in this particular entity, you'll have something called attributes. attributes. Okay, so these attributes are like corresponding to material number. You will have material number one attribute, and material type is one attribute, and unit of measure is one attribute, group is one attribute. Okay, all these other different attributes are there under entity. You can assume this particular entity as a equivalent to your table on ECC side, and the table fields you can assume like attributes. Okay, now similarly you will have something called Marcy plant table, and again you have some other attributes over here, attribute 1, attribute 2, something like that. Again here you will have something called, again, and corresponding to this one you will have another entity, and in this particular entity you will have again corresponding to each attribute you will have some attributes over here, attribute 1, attribute 2. Okay, so data model is something like is the data model. Data model is nothing but group of entities, and entity is nothing but group of attributes. And these entities under one data model, if you have more than one entity, you need to define some relationships between these entities. There is a relation between Mara and Marcy. What is the relation? Here Mara is material number is your key. Here the key is your material number plus plant. Okay, so when the relation here is parent and child. Okay, for Marcy, right, for every material that exists in Mara, then only you can extend that material to the plants over here. So you have a, like, whenever you enter when you are extending this material to some plants, system will check this particular material exists in this particular Mara table or not. There is a foreign key check will happen on your Mara table when you are extending to Marcy. So there is a parent-child relationship is there. Similarly, here when you have more than one entity, you need to define some relationships between those entities. Okay, so if you look at this particular diagram, it talks about the same thing. Data model is at the top level. Assume that is the data model. Of course, you can see a sample over here. Under you can have n number of entity types. One entity type for material information, one entity type to store your plant information, one entity type to store your sales information, valuation information. Likewise, you'll have n number of entity types. And each entity will have in turn attributes. And each attribute in turn will have the data elements. And when you have more than one entity type in one data model, you need to define a relationship between these entity types. So there is a relationships are there. Okay, so at the high level, when you are creating your custom data model, the intention or the idea is you need to by completion of your data model topic, you should understand this entire concept. And once I do all this, first I'll create my own custom data model, Z1 data model. I'll create entity 1 and I'll add some attributes, attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3. And again, I add one more entity 2. And I'll add some more attributes here, attribute 4, attribute 5, something like that. Okay, now I'll define the relation between these two entities. And finally, I go to this particular data model and there is a button called activate button. I click this activate button. When I click this activate button, that time MDG framework system will generate two staging tables, one staging table for this entity, another staging table for this entity. And in that staging table, it will add all these attributes. Okay, so if you go, that's how actually your staging tables will get created. We don't directly go to SE11 and edit the staging tables. We always configure your data model level, and after your changes, you hit an activate button. Accordingly, system will generate your staging tables. Now I generated this, that's fine. My staging table got created with these 3 attributes. Now I added one more, I wanted to add one more attribute, X1. Now again, I open this data model, I go to this particular entity. Under this entity, I'll add one X1 attribute. Again, I have to activate this data model. If I don't activate this data model, my staging table will refer still A1, A2, A3 only attributes. Again, if I activate this data model, now my staging table will readjusted with or regenerated with additional delta changes, that X1 attribute as well. Okay, so now let's get into system and look at how it will be Okay, so this is the data model. Okay, now you see here data model. Is the data model. Okay, now under this data model, you have all these are different entities. Okay, now let's take one entity name corresponding to your Mara table. Here the entity is material. The entity name is material. So there is an entity, material entity. Now select this entity and go further down. You can see all the attributes under this particular entity. And every entity is associated with some data element technically. You can assign search helps, you can assign some description. There are some settings are there. I'll explain when you are creating your own data model. Okay, but you will see all these attributes under your data model. Similarly, you take another probably, let's say for example, what are other, so MBEW, this is costing, material valuation costing entity. Under this particular entity, you will have some attributes, costing related attributes. Okay, now I can add here one more my Z attribute. I can click on new entry and I'll add my Z attribute over here and I'll provide the data element. After that, I need to save these my changes, come back and select your data model, click on activate button. Then that particular costing staging table will get readjusted or it will regenerated with your third attribute, that Z attribute that you are creating. Yes, Shekhar, please.
Yeah, Akshay, one more thing. We can directly change the standard data model, right? With no enhancement is needed. Like BP and OG are standard data model, right? We can directly add the attribute in the standard data model. Hello.
Can you come again?
Means what I'm trying to say that we can add our attributes, custom fields directly in the standard data model. No need to create any customization, right?
Yeah, you can add your custom attributes in the standard data model. Yes, that is true. So that is what I said the second scenario, extending the standard data models with our custom attributes. Okay, now when it comes to the extension, you have two options. One option is you can create your, under this data model, you can create your own entity type, new entity type over here. I can click on new entries. I'll create my own entity. Okay, and under that entity, I'll add attributes. That is one scenario. Other scenario is I will choose, for example, I wanted to add some attributes in my Mara table. On ECC side, I have my Z attributes under Mara table. Now it makes always sense to me to add corresponding to Mara table. I have an entity over here. So
yes,
in that case, I will select this entity and I'll go to attributes. There I'll click the new entity, new attributes, and I'll add these attributes. So there are two scenarios again when it comes to the extensions, extending the standard entities. One scenario, another scenario is create altogether your own entity and add those attributes. In what cases we will extend new entity, in what cases we just select the standard entities, that we will discuss later. But I'm just trying to show you that what are the ways that you can actually enhance your standard data models. We'll discuss more and more use cases when it comes to the extensions. Okay.
Do we need the same need to extend it in the underlying ECC?
Underlying ECC, it depends on, yeah. So if you need this information to be replicated, you whatever that Z attributes you need, ultimately there are two cases. I can actually go for this extension. Okay. So one scenario is, let's say for example, okay, so this is my MDG system. This is my target system. Okay, this is my transactional system. Here, business wants, while creating a sales order, okay, as soon as they enter some material number, material 100, okay, so they need some attribute to also which they will use in sales order while creating a sales order. So that attribute will be part of your Mara table, okay, or it's a part of your material master. So usually what we do, we extend that particular Mara table with your Z attributes, that is Z department, or probably yeah, Z department or something, Z default plant or something. You extend this one. Now you need this particular information to be populated for every material that you are creating. If I'm using MM01 here directly, I'll extend my MM01 and I'll populate this information. But I'm locking down this particular one. My material always gets created from my MDG layer. So that's where now I need to extend my Mara table here as well with the Z attribute, Z department. Now, corresponding to this one, I need to extend my MM data model. MM data model, under MM data model, under material entity, I need to add my Z department. Okay. Now I need to enhance my UI application, MDG UI application with Z department. Then only when user is creating a material, he will populate the Z department value. That data gets stored into my staging table. After activation, that record will pass to move to my underlying ECC table. And from here, I'll ensure that this data also will replicate and store in my Mara table. Then only this Z department can be used in my sales order processing. Is it clear?
Yeah. Say, do we need to add same field on the ECC screen?
No, not required. It's not. I mean, it's up to you. If at all you wanted to see this value in MM03 on ECC side, then you need to do that extensions.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that is a right question, because sometimes they can actually check that values in MDG system. But if at all I wanted, business says that no, I don't want it to go log into MDG system every time. I wanted to see this these values in my MM03. We can MM03 we always will be enable. So I mean we'll enable this MM03, but we all the creation or change transactions we lock down, because we wanted to have the data to be created or maintained through single channel, not from multiple channels. So that's why we locked down MM01 over here. But in MM03, if at all you wanted to display, you can actually extend this MM03 to display this particular value. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, so in MDG world, just to summarize, you have something called data model. Under data model, you'll have something called entity types. Under entity type, you will have something called attributes. Okay, so this is again another entity type. Here you have again some more attributes. Okay, now when you have more than one attribute, you need to define relationships between those attributes. Similarly, just you have Mara Marcy, there is a relation between Mara Marcy. Then Mara and MBEW, there is a relation. Mara and MBKE, there is a relation. So at the table level, how you have a relation, at entity level also you need to have that relation. Based on this relation only, when the staging tables get generated, your keys will get created. Here, this is my plant entity. Plant entity may to create your key value should be material plus plant. Okay, so that based on the relation only, system will generate that keys on the generated staging tables. So this is what we are going to discuss as part of the data model topic. So tomorrow what we will do is we will take one use case, okay, custom data model, brand new data model, and we will create our own data model. We'll create the entity types, attributes, and we define the relationships, and you finally activate that data model. Then we will see how the staging tables are getting created in the backend. So why we are doing this data model, custom data model? Because when you're in the project, when you're working on MM or BP data model, you don't create any new data model. You just, at max, you can extend the standard data models with your custom entities or custom attributes. But when you're creating a custom entity, you need to define a relation. There also, whatever we are discussing, all these topics will come into picture over there. Okay, but you will get an experience feel of that. Okay, how the even MM also, SAP also created MM data model in the same fashion. So once you know that data model, how to create from scratch, it will be easy for you to while extending the standard data model. So that's why always I recommend to learn right from the scratch how to create your custom data models, because we are not writing any code over here, just trying to understand the concepts. What is entity type? What is relation? What are the attributes? and all that concepts. While creating our custom data models, we will be talking so many settings, so many attributes, everything. Okay, so those I will be explaining while creating there itself. Okay, let's say for example, you have this material entity. So if at all I have to create an entity, you need to maintain all these settings. Under entity type, you need to choose what is the storage type, what is validity, what is the data element, and the key assignment, all these settings. So we will be discussing each and every attribute while creating this, what is the importance of each and every setting over here while defining an entity type. And again, while adding an attributes also, you have so many settings. So we will discuss the configurations that are available at data. While data model level also, you need to mention something. Active area is there. You have something called package. On the right hand side, you will have something called active version status. So likewise, so there are certain configuration settings at data model level, some at entity level and attribute level. And finally, we'll be discussing about the relationships as well. Okay, so tomorrow we'll take one use case and we will build one data model.
Actually, one question.
Yeah.
So whatever we are going through, right? So the materials, what we have, so which material are we supposed to record?
Sorry, can you come again?
So we have been provided some materials to refer. So whatever you are going through the steps like data model concept and everything, right?
So yeah.
So
not exactly these processes. First thing is that you will have access to these recordings. Every session will get recorded. And once you get familiar with this one, you use to it. And I'll show you that where the standard SAP documentation is available. The documentation, I'll show you that links. And I also have my own documentation. I'll be sharing those documentation as well, topic wise.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, what we are supposed to do for server access?
Server access, I think you need to reach out to the support team. So I think when you are talking about, I'm not sure whoever with the executive you are intact. So just check with them for the server access.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So otherwise, I'll ask the support team to reach out to you, each one of you, whether you need server access or not.
If I'm not wrong, the server access, like they will give only for 1 month.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you suggest to take the server access now, or
that's what we will wait for some more time. Okay, because if we take the server access now itself, when we are not getting into the system exactly, because now we are trying to understand the concepts. When there is a need, once I complete this data model topic, then it's better to get that server access so that you can make use of that time as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll tell by when I'll tell even the support team also when to provide the server access. Maybe for now, just we'll complete the data model. We'll create a data model tomorrow, and after that we will request for the server access, so that that's where you can make use of that time as well. Okay.
Actually, one more question. Sorry. Yeah. So, like MDG is in the market for a very long time, right? So there is not much difference between the ECC and the S/4HANA. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
So now we are going through this MDG training. So do you think we will expect we'll get some jobs on this or some kind of a support project or something like this?
No, there are so many implementation projects are there in MDG. Okay, so earlier what happens? See, there is no difference. Means all the existing concepts remain same in MDG in S4 as well. Additionally, there are some new features are available on MDG S4 HANA. Okay, so those features we'll be discussing. But otherwise, whatever the existing processes are there, 90% everything remains same. The 10% differences I will touch upon when we reach to that particular topic.
Okay. And one more question, like the people who are going for SAP ECC to S/4HANA, right? Do they really use MDG or not?
Yeah, now SAP made it mandatory that usually, right, all the master data you have to create through the MDG, because on S/4HANA MDG comes as a out of box. Like earlier they used to charge it separately. You need to take the license, but with S/4HANA it included already. The license also included. So most of the organizations are using MDG. They are not actually. If you go to customer or vendor in S4, right? XK01 or those transactions are by default locked down. Okay, so you have to use the MDG only to create a customer or vendor. So that's where, because it is coming included as part of your S4 HANA itself, so many of the organizations are started using MDG. So that's where you see more and more projects on MDG, implementation projects.
Okay.
Okay. So yep, fine. Then tomorrow, I'm not sure if you are all are from India or some other location. We will start the session 30 minutes late. That is at today we start, usually we start at 7 p.m. right? So tomorrow 30 minutes delay will start 7:30 p.m. Is that fine for everyone? 30 minutes delay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that should be okay for me.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll update there in the LMS as well. So just join at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. That just 30 minutes delay. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay then. Yeah.
Only for tomorrow or from tomorrow?
No, only for tomorrow. Only for
Okay.
tomorrow. Okay. Okay then. Yep. Thank you all. Thanks for your time, and we'll meet tomorrow.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to visit our Vimeo page and follow for more upcoming videos.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.